G'day team, it's Chris speaking. Welcome back. Today we are talking about going to family events, specifically for me, extended family events, after coming out as transgender. The reason that I want to talk about this is because it can be a really nerve-wracking and stressful time for someone who has just come out, and it can even be a stressful time for people who have been out for a couple of years. I'm doing this video now rather than 2 years ago when I first came out as transgender because I've had experience at these events over the last 2 years, from going to not passing to now passing quite well. I recently went to my grandfather's funeral, which was probably the most recent extended family event that I went to, and I had some experiences there as someone who was 2 years on testosterone versus when I first came out, and just asking to go by he, him pronouns and a different name before starting T. So, when you come out, you've got one set of experiences, and that's nerve-wracking enough. You've come out to your extended family, you've come out to your immediate family, and they are all on board and they're all good. You know, fingers crossed that you're in a good situation, and that's been the case. Or even if they haven't been on board, they're sort of warm to the idea and seen the changes that have happened in you and are all good. Now, that was the case with me. I'm very close with my immediate family. Please do remember that these are my experiences alone, and I'm not speaking for anybody else. I said no to going to extended family events for a long time. I wasn't comfortable because I'd been to one just after coming out, and it puts you in a position, it puts you in a weird position as someone who doesn't pass, who is only starting to experiment with name and gender and identity and expressionism and whatnot, and being put in a situation where you potentially have hundreds of family members that you only see once every couple of years to start questioning you, and they all come up to you and they say, oh, I remember when you were this big, or, you know, I haven't seen you in so long, tell me what's going on in your life now. And then having that internal battle of trying to choose, who do I tell, who do I not tell, do I tell anyone, do I just hide in a corner for 3 hours and hope that this goes away? But there are going to be people who are interested in your life because you're interesting and people want to know you, which is lovely, but when you just want to stick your head in the sand, it can be a nightmare. So going to one of these events very shortly after coming out as transgender, I did just that. I stuck my head in the sand. There is also, for me personally, this idea of I don't want to burden anybody else with my story. I don't want to come out to these people only to have to come out again in 5 years' time when I look and I sound different. So I chose not to come out at the first extended family event that I went to. I sat quietly, I played the part of my dead name, accepted the pronouns. I felt like shit after. Every time that you hear your dead name or you hear the pronouns that you don't identify with after coming out as trans and coming to that realization within yourself, it sucks. It's like a little nail in your brain. Every time someone else comes in, it hits you, and it does suck, and that was on me for not wanting to come out. But also, it's up to the individual. If you're in that situation, you may act differently. There may be people that you want to know what's going on in your life, but then you've got to deal with things like the rumor mill and the grapevine, and it getting misconstrued, and I didn't want to deal with it. Now, having gone to an extended family event recently, 2 years on testosterone, where I do look and sound different, and I'd just been married to my wife as her husband, it was an interesting experience to go to this event. And it wasn't a nice event, it was my grandfather's funeral, and I'd just been married, so people sort of coming up to Rach and I and saying congratulations, and it was very surreal, particularly because we are in COVID, so we were all wearing masks during the funeral, and while we were out sort of saying condolences to, you know, people that he was very close to. And I had to deal with this all over again. People coming up to me and saying, oh, you're a real adult now, you got married, and you know, I remember when you were this big. It happens everywhere you go. And the worst thing is that I'm now 30 and I've turned into one of those people when I see kids that I was there when they were born and when they grew up, and now they're, you know, mini adults, and it's like, whoa, I remember holding you in my arms. And it's the circle of life. You turn into one of those people that you resented, and then they resent you, and the circle goes on. But I was at this event, sorry, went off on a tangent. What's new? at this event and having to deal with people coming up to me and calling me my dead name because I hadn't told them years ago. And I, again, for the most part, just let it slide by. I talk to them with my beard, I talk to them with my voice, and if they wanted to call me my dead name and my incorrect pronouns, then so be it. I don't care anymore. And I think that's where I've got to. I'm confident enough in myself to be like, I don't care. It still sucks. And if you hear it often enough, and another reason I didn't go to family events is because even if your immediate family or your friends are trying to be good and getting your name and your pronouns right, when one person slips up, it's very easy for the people who have trained their brain to think differently to slip and go back. So not only are you hearing people that you don't deal with very often dead name you and use your wrong pronouns, but your immediate family sometimes will slip into old habits and they don't mean to do it, but that hurts. And that's one of the reasons that I try to avoid going to these events, and why sometimes, honestly, I still try and avoid going to these events, because when one person slips up, you get a snowball effect and people just continue to slip up. But it still happens from, pre-T to 2 years on T. I came out to more people 2 years on testosterone. Social media is a blessing in some ways. People that I did have on social media already knew because I've been following my journey. People who are watching the YouTube channel to follow my journey as well, they already knew, so they sort of had a bit of an indication. But there were family members there that I haven't seen for 5 or 6 years, and they would come up to me and what's going on with you? And I would just go, just got married, have a honeymoon, and sorry for your loss. But what I'm getting at is it's up to the individual. No one can tell you how you're going to act. It is perfectly fine if you want to avoid those events for the reasons that I've gone through. If you want to avoid those events for your own reasons, it can be very nerve-wracking to even not come out to these people, but to know you're identifying a different way than they're seeing you. That takes a lot of brain power to get through. And if you're avoiding these events, you don't need to feel guilty about avoiding these events, because you need to look after you right now, and that's okay. That was a bit of a rant about, pre-T or very early in transition versus now, going to these extended family events. If you like the content, then do give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of it, then click on my face. If you've got your own experiences that you want to share with people, by all means, pop a comment down below, and I'll catch you next time. Okay, bye.